What's going on, guys? And today I'm going to be talking about the NBA playoffs and my predictions for them. I do know that already a game has surpassed, and possibly by the time it has been uploaded, this video, 2 games may have been passed. However, I'm going to do my opinions upon what I thought before the playoffs, as I was not able to record a video by that time. Sorry about that, but it might play into a factor of how these games went a tiny bit, but for the most part it's going to be my opinions that I had before the playoffs started. So anyways, I'm going to go through all the teams, or all the matchups, and say who I think will win and what will happen, all the way down to the NBA Finals. Alright, first up, Warriors-Rockets. I think that this will be an extreme blowout of a series. There might be one game that the Rockets will win because of a crazy hot James Harden night, where James Harden just plays like an MVP as he did last year. But besides that, I think this series should be almost decided immediately with Warriors. I predict that they'll sweep them 4-0, but there's a small chance that James Harden and the Rockets might steal a game just because they'll be incredibly hot. Next up are the Clippers and Blazers. And I might sound like a Blazers fan, but I feel like they have a very good chance at pushing this series very far. A lot of people think that there's a good chance that they would upset them. I do not know if that's entirely true, as I think at some point their hot streak will wear out. And as much as I don't like the Clippers, I think that they're too talented and too big for the Portland Trail Blazers. I feel like the Clippers have a better matchups in all aspects of the game compared to Portland, where they have a much better center and power forward compared to where the point guards pretty much cancel each other out in terms of their talent. In terms of shooting guard wise, CJ McCollum is better than JJ Redick. However, this is pretty much the only advantage for Portland. I do think Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum will get hot for at least 1 or 2 games, so I'll call this Clippers in 6. Now moving on, we have the Mavericks and the Thunder. Before this happened, this game and series started, I thought this would be a very exciting series because of a few years ago, the Grizzlies and Thunder weren't really rivals, but they were pretty good competitors. One of the major moments you might remember from them would be Kevin Durant hitting a crazy fadeaway 3 to win a game against the Mavs, I believe in 2013. Sometime around there, you can check it out. I don't remember the exact year, but I thought this would be a pretty good competition, as it felt like Dirk and KD always had some sort of rivalry going. However, they kind of blew him out the first game, and I still thought this would be a pretty lopsided series, and I always thought that it would be the the Thunder in 5. Now moving on down, and I gave the 1 game to the Mavericks, as Dirk is one of my favorite players, and I feel like he can pull out a game here or there in the playoffs. Now moving on down to a series that is actually abysmal, the Grizzlies versus the Spurs. Before this happened, I thought the Spurs would absolutely sweep and destroy the Grizzlies, because the Grizzlies are so short-handed, where they only have really Zach Randolph, Matt Barnes, and Lance Stevenson are the only legit NBA players on their team, it seems, where a lot of the other guys are just D-leaguers and bench guys that have to play a lot of minutes. Oh, Tony Allen as well. Sorry if I forgot some of them, but not a huge Grizzlies fan. So I think that the Spurs absolutely destroy them. They match up well against the Grizzlies' style of play and everything, and in the first game they got killed, the Grizzlies that is, so I think that the Spurs will win this in 4. Now moving on over to the East, we have the Cavs versus the Pistons, and in this series I feel that Drummond can actually destroy the Cavs. However, that didn't happen too much in the first game, even though the Pistons kept it close. I do think, however, there will be one game where Reggie Jackson just pulls out Reggie Jackson playoff mode, which he can do every now and again, and Andre Drummond will just go for a monster like 20 or 25 rebound night. So I'll give it to the Cavs, however, in a 5-game series where I think the Pistons can pull out a game. Now moving on over to the Hawks versus Celtics. This was a really tough matchup. Well, these two, and also the Heat and Hornets, as they all had the same exact record. But I feel like the Hawks will pull this one out, and as a Celtics fan, I do like Portland and Boston. I feel like this will be very tough for them, this matchup, as Paul Millsap is an absolute animal this year. I said I would vote for him on the defensive second team, I believe, and I made a video of that. You can go check it out, and I believe it came out today. He was ranked 4th in Defensive Player of the Year voting, or something around that, which is incredible. And then the rest of the Hawks, I think they just match up very well to the Celtics. Celtics are very good team defensively and creating havoc, but I think the Hawks are too much of a stable environment that they won't really fall under the pressure. So I'll predict the Hawks in 6, where Boston will get 2 games. Now moving on over to another hard series to predict. I think the Heat versus Hornets is a very tough series as well. I believe the Hornets have a 3-1 or a 3-0, something like that, season lead in their matchups. However, the Heat, I just feel like, are very, very good. Even though they're missing Chris Bosh, one of the better players in this league, I feel like they can still pull out a pretty good game all the time. So I think that they should win the series in 6, where the Thunder, where the Hornets will pull out 2 victories, and I think both will be at home for them. Now moving on down to Toronto and Indiana. You guys hated on me for my preseason predictions when I said Toronto won't do much. And I was wrong about them, at least in the regular season, where the regular season they were absolutely amazing. I believe they won 56 or 57 games, something around that. However, when it comes to playoff time, they are absolutely horrid. They lost by 10, which isn't too bad compared to some of the losses, but they lost to the 7-seed Pacers. Before this happened, I thought that this series might go to 6, and I'll stay with that. And I say the Pacers win in 6 games. Alright, so now moving on to the next round. It's going to be the Warriors versus the Clippers, and I have to say Warriors will win this in 4. There's a chance that they'll force a 5th game, the Clippers, because if Blake Griffin is healthy and coming back and playing well, of course he can force them into that, but I feel like Draymond Green can absolutely negate him, as well as everything else on the team in terms of the Warriors is far superior. So I'll give them a 4-0 win. There is a good chance the Clippers can win a game or 2, but I don't think it will make that much of a difference. Now moving on over to the Spurs versus the Thunder. This is a very interesting matchup, as both of these teams should have in most seasons would be finals favorites, where the Spurs won, I believe, 67 games, which is like top 5 or 6 seasons of all time, but they're not even being recognized, and they tied the best home record of all time. And the Thunder are a very spectacular team, having 2 of the top 5 players in the league, at least in my opinion. So that's what's very interesting about this series, but I think that the Spurs are still too good for them. The Spurs will win this series in 6 games, 4-2. Now moving on down to the other side, we are going up with the Hawks versus the Cavaliers. This, I feel like, would be a very, very tough game for LeBron and the Cavs, as Paul Millsap, I keep mentioning him, will be very talented, and he can absolutely destroy most of the big men that the Cavs have. Most of the matchups, I feel, favor the Hawks. But the thing is, you have LeBron James, who can absolutely dominate a series, if not an entire season. But I think LeBron will have a real issue with this team, unlike he had last year, where I believe they swept them. So I think that this will be deciding 6 games, where the Hawks pull out 2 victories but end up losing. Now going to the Pacers versus the Heat. This is a tough choice, because the Pacers and Heat series from a couple years ago, when they faced, I believe, 2 times in a row, the conference finals is absolutely beautiful. Of course, the lineups have changed dramatically from then, where I believe on the Pacers, the only real guy who's been around, or is still around, is George Hill and Paul George, which I absolutely love having Paul George, George Hill on the same team, because you can just call him Paul George Hill. And yeah, so that's a little doozy, I guess, going off track like the usual. And I also like the fact that they have all the Hills in the league, but that won't be enough to overcome the Heat and the Heat's depth. So I think, once again, just like what happened twice in a row, the Heat will pull out and win this series in 5, as I think the Pacers just really aren't good enough to beat the Heat, but are good enough to beat the Raptors. So this will be 4-1 in the Heat's favor. Now moving on down to the conference finals, Spurs versus the Thunder. Spurs versus the Warriors. This will be a very, very tough series as well, as these are two of the best teams of all time, and this is the 2 best teams in the league right now. Ideally, this could have been the NBA Finals, because I don't think the Cavs are really going to come close to either of these teams, spoiler alert. However, I think, in my personal opinion, that the Warriors will win out very, very narrowly in a 7-game series. This will be a very tight game. I feel like it's almost a coin flip at this point, but the Warriors have, I believe, in my opinion, a 5% higher chance of winning. So, yeah. The Spurs will have a great thing. I would rather have the Spurs win. I'm not a huge Spurs fan, but the fact that I'd love to see Tim Duncan win his 6th title and just retire, because at this point he's on his last legs, and it'd be amazing just to see probably the best player of the past 15 years, 20 years, almost, just go out on the highest point, just like what Kobe did, except Kobe was playing on a terrible team. So I think the Warriors will just are favored in this matchup, and they will make it to the NBA Finals. Not going up for the Heat versus the Cavaliers. This will be a very emotional series, I feel like, where LeBron has to go back to his old team, the Heat, and have to beat him to make it to the finals. But I think he'll be able to do this, but it'll be very tough, where I feel like this will have finals emotions, or I don't know the right word, but if you feel what I'm saying, like a final kind of vibe to it, where LeBron is really struggling against this team, where I feel like they have a lot of good defenders that can play LeBron. Justice Winslow, even though he's a rookie, can be a solid LeBron defender. Luol Deng is not too bad either. They got a lot of guys that can throw at him, and the Heat are pretty deep as well. However, I think LeBron will just will his way through this series, a very tough series that is actually pretty entertaining, and the Cavs will win in 6 games, 4-2 in their favor. Now going on a rematch of last year, the Warriors versus the Cavs, and I think the Warriors will win this in 5. Last year they won it in 6, as the Cavs were playing absolutely like with their hearts, as Dellavedova and Tristan Thompson were playing like stars. However, I don't think that can be replicated this year, even though they do have their stars in Kyrie and Kevin Love. I don't think that those two will make a huge impact upon the Warriors, even though that Kyrie was playing pretty good defense on Stephen Curry in the finals last year, but then he got injured. I don't know if he'd be able to sustain that for a series to the point that it makes the game close, or the series close. So I'd have to give it to the Warriors in all aspects. Of course, LeBron is an absolute animal, and I mean, the Warriors figured out how to beat him, and just have LeBron score as much as possible, which sounds really counterintuitive, but that's really the best way to beat the Cavs when you really have nothing else to do, is just let LeBron score 40 every night, but don't let anyone else kill you. And I believe the Warriors have figured this out, and they're smart enough to find something else out in case this doesn't work. So I'm giving them the lead, or the win in the finals, 4-1. And just for shits and giggles, let's just say that the Spurs made it there. At this point, I still think it would be a 4-1 series win for the Spurs. Now, if the Thunder made it there, that'd be much more interesting. Almost a rematch of the 2012 finals, I believe, where there's Thunder versus Heat, where it's LeBron versus KD. And at this point, I feel like it'd be like a coin flip. It could go either way, but realistically, I think it would be Warriors winning over the Cavaliers 4-1. And if not that, it'd be the same outcome, but with the Spurs instead. Anyways, guys, thank you guys for watching. I know I made this a little bit too late, and I had some bias after watching a couple of the games. But anyways, if you watch this far, please give me a thumbs up. Comment down below what you think about these predictions. I know there's a lot of Toronto fans out there, and I'm sorry, but until they prove me wrong, or they win a series, or do anything really in the playoffs, I will continue to think of this team this way. It's not like against Toronto. I think Toronto's a fine. I like their team in general. And I feel like I've never been to Toronto, but I don't hear people hating on Toronto. It's just the fact that I don't think the team is a legit playoff team until they actually prove it. So, yeah. Anyways, guys, tell me that below, what you think about these predictions. Subscribe for more 2K and NBA content, and I'll be talking about all through probably the draft and free agency up until next year. And, yeah, share with your friends or discuss this at other places. Anyways, guys, thank you guys for watching, and have a good day.